So this paper didn't end the way it started, is my recollection. And I wonder if you remember where initially we started in our discussion about the paper. I mean, how we were thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, we started very broad, so it's tough to remember because I feel like there's so much there. But I know
Art
that...
and society. Let me
Right.
do a 10-page paper on that.
Right. Well, we talked about kind of how before I started, I went to Tate Modern, and I think the semester before I'd been to DC. So I was looking even at like propaganda stuff. And I've always wanted to tie art into it. So I remember in my art history classes, I loved Impressionism. And I thought maybe we can gather, some artists like Toulouse-Lautrec and I can't remember some of the other ones that we talked about, but thinking about how I could weave it in. And I think at first I started really broad, trying to force something together. And then we thought about different examples. I think that got me rolling where you were like, why don't we do a comparison of some sort? So our initial path was very biographical, and that concerned me because I didn't want to feel like I was recounting something already said.
Yeah, I seem to remember that we initially started talking about artists who also did advertising work.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Because, of course, some of Lautrec's artwork was used in advertising.
Right.
And I think that's how we first started.
I think so, too. And for some reason, when going down that path, I kept leading myself into biographies and interest, because these were such interesting people.
Right.
And that's where I really liked reading about it. So after going down that route, I think I really wanted to do something a little more analytical where I could actually read it, digest it, maybe compare it to some other things, and then form my own viewpoints around that. So that was really interesting for me to be able to say that I said something at least somewhat original. Yeah.
Well, that's the hardest thing to do, is to kind of get away or take a break from feeling like you've got to do a descriptive paper. Here's what happened. And go to, because that doesn't give you the chance to contribute your own ideas and stuff.
Right.
And move to, like I said, more an analytic one, which is, okay, now I'm making sense of this in some kind of new way. And it's often a real tough shift to go.
Yeah.
I think I remember giving you that, and you cited in the first paragraph of your paper that Nick Holm essay. I don't know if you remember much of that, but do you remember at all how that kind of helped you maybe rethink a little bit or extend how you're thinking a little bit?
I remember there was an argument there about capitalism and how often advertising is seen as just this capitalistic endeavor where it's purely selfish and materialistic. And there was a point there where I think that they said that it depends on each other. Advertising needs it just as much as capitalism needs advertising. So I thought about how people rag on ads a lot, and then comparing it to something so now well-loved as Impressionism, I thought would be really interesting, because there are some things there where they sort of mirror each other or like build off of each other.
Sure.
Where advertising kind of takes a look in my eyes at some of the ways in which Impressionism was done. So
well, I think that was a big breakthrough, it seems to me. And as we were talking about this, and the breakthrough, it seemed to me, was to try to see that really our paper is not just going to be about advertising.
Right.
It's not just going to be about art, and it's not just going to be about comparing art to advertising, but about how both were responding in the moment to this much, much bigger process that was going on, which, of course, is the emergence of modernity and stuff. Right. That, I think, was the big breakthrough.
Right, and at the root of it all was just this discomfort that people felt. And that was an area that I was always interested in. We learned about it in my History of American Business class, and we learned about it in art history and even advertising. So it was nice to kind of see how I can build that together and sort of use everything that I'd learned in these different types of classes to make something of it all.
Sure.
So that was great.
And this anxiety, it manifests itself visually in terms of style.
Right.
Style representing style of viewpoint and all the other things that you said that you ended up kind of talking about and stuff. And I thought that was a great thing. Yeah.
And initially I would think that a semester to do a paper would be an extremely long time, but I think having that extra semester and spreading it over a couple of them, spreading it over a year was really great for us. Because I know the initial structure, I felt pretty proud of how that turned out, but then the way we turned it around and broke it down and made it so much more clear, I think really worked and ended up getting us to where we ended up in the end.
Yeah, that's
great.
That
competition.
That's great.
Yeah.